is Justin, and I'm a son of God and an addict, and the host of the RICO 12 speaker meeting. And thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowship of other addicts, I'm sober one day at a time since June 19th, 2015. And for that, I am beyond grateful. Welcome to RICO 12. We are an organization whose addictions include alcohol, drugs, lust, and sex, food, and gambling, just to name a few. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to learn the similarities of addiction and to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We invite recovering addicts with at least 1 year sobriety and who are actively working their recovery in their respective fellowships to share their experience, strength, and hope on a live Zoom webinar each Friday at noon Central Time for 20 to 25 minutes. Then we, the live audience, get the opportunity to ask questions of that speaker for another 20 to 25 minutes. If you're hearing this meeting in recorded podcast form and would like to participate as a live audience member in the future, please go to RICO12.com, that's RECO12.com, to learn more and to submit your email address there to receive weekly invitations. RICO 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our 12th step in this manner. We gratefully accept contributions to help cover the cost of the Zoom platform and other expenses that come up from this. To contribute, you can go to RICO12.com/support, or you can click the link to PayPal in the chat of the live meeting or in the show notes of the podcast. When you contribute, please specify the meeting number. This is number 76. One more word about our speakers before we introduce today's speaker. When we line up a speaker, we ask them to really think about the topic, to seek guidance on what they should talk about in order for us to gain the light and knowledge that maybe they have to share. That will inspire hope, meaning, worth, and growth in each of us, the listening audience. Now let's introduce our guest speaker for today, Jared K., whose topic will be gaining independence while working the steps. Now here's a little bit about Jared in his own words. He says, I have been sober for over 4 years, mostly due to the hard work and higher power. I have reached a point in my sobriety that allows me to socialize like a normal person. Constant self-awareness and the ability to go to that safe space in your heart and mind at will is very important. Jared, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Justin. I want to talk about how we can become independent recovery addicts. Too often people feel that they have to be completely dependent, and to the point where it's almost a codependence on the people in the program. And there's a balance, I find, between a healthy dependence and an unhealthy one. For example, I hear people that have been in the program for many years who still have to call people when a pretty girl walks down the street. That should not be the case after 3 years in a program. And I'm going to share with you the ways that you could become more independent. I believe that one of the basic purpose of so much meditation in the beginning of the program and in the program in general, which really needs to be stressed, is that is an independent action that you're taking with yourself to get control or to try to find control over your mind and your actions and your recovery. So every action of meditation is one step towards independence. You'll find also that if you talk to people who are more independent after the recovery, you'll find they probably did a lot of meditation. They probably worked their program extremely hard. And they probably didn't need to make as many phone calls a year later after starting working a hard program. I guarantee you, if you start working a program with like a serious program, and I'm going to talk about that too, what that entails. But I guarantee you, if you work a program hard for a year, you'll feel a difference. You're not going to feel like you're ready to take on the world, so to speak, with your addiction, but you'll definitely feel a huge difference. So first of all, I want to talk about how much time and effort I feel is necessary in order to gain independence in a program and to actually have the program work for you. I used to work the program I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll say what I think is necessary, because maybe I did more than is necessary, but this is what I did. I would work the program for a half hour every morning before I spoke to my, and I do this 5 days a week. On the weekends, we really wouldn't meet often, but 5 days a week, usually, I'd spend a half hour preparing, meaning I'm filling out charts, I'm writing on lists, I'm doing whatever kind of writing assignment, because I find that writing is extremely helpful for me. So some sort of writing assignment that I was usually given from my sponsor. And then we would speak for a half hour about it. And we'd go through the work and we'd discuss it. And I remember that I was having such anxiety in the beginning of the program that I found it very hard to function. So I used to meditate a lot. I found it was the only thing that would give me any sort of stability. So before I would leave the house, I would lie on the couch and I'd do these guided meditations from random people I found on YouTube. I found a lot of YouTube to be very helpful to me. I found tons of guided meditations that helped me. And I found a lot of inspirational speakers that I don't really watch them anymore. Like there's I don't know if I should mention their names, but I don't watch any of them anymore. I really don't feel I need their inspiration, but I guess I'd go back to it if in the future I did need it. But these weren't people in a program. They were just talking about like growing as a person. There's a lot of people that are talking about like awakenings and all these things. And just listening to authentic people share with you what they're going through sometimes is extremely helpful. Even just the sharing of it, just like you find it's healing when you go to a meeting. So I was working the program about an hour a day plus a meditation, which took me 10 minutes. I don't recommend doing extremely long meditations. There's tons of 10-minute meditations on YouTube to find, and even less than that. I also recommend that after you've been doing guided meditations for maybe a year or two, you might want to stop using them and start to meditate on your own, because that's another form of dependence, because now your meditation is dependent on you having some sort of recording on you. So what if you're in the middle of the forest? You want to meditate. You tell me it wouldn't make any sense to have to go to YouTube at that point. So for me, I found guided meditation was a way to get me introduced to meditation. But in the long run, I got to the point where I could meditate anywhere. There's a lot of people on YouTube that talk about these things. Some of them are flaky, some of them aren't, but like you could learn from everybody. So if somebody says something that makes sense to you, even if they sound a little flaky, it's perfectly fine if it makes you feel better. My sponsor used to make fun of me, not make fun of me, but he used to joke about how much therapy I acquired over YouTube. There's tons of channels that present all sorts of very, very therapeutical videos that diagnose things and talk about what people go through at different points in their life, and depression and anxiety and things that are in your mind. I found a lot of these very enlightening to me. I reflected back on them in my meditations a lot of times. And now at the point, if I feel like I'm in a location, or let's say my wife is getting on my nerves, or who knows, you just feel like you're losing control. So closing my eyes is the first thing I do, because when I close my eyes, I eliminate all visual abstractions, things that distract me. So I just it's almost like I shut the world off. So I shut my eyes, and then I breathe deeply. I focus on my breathing, and I ask myself, what am I feeling? What am I feeling right now? Is it appropriate? And I'll have like an internal conversation, and you can do it in a second or two. It doesn't have to take 30 minutes. It's just a matter of quickly closing your eyes, and you practice at it, and you can really get yourself into that point. Like I don't get aggravated very much anymore. In situations where my wife or my parents would drag me into arguments and get me emotionally invested in the argument, I'm completely detached. My father got mad at me yesterday because I lost an Easy Pass, and I was trying to I couldn't find it, and it's his Easy Pass. And after looking for it for 2 months, I couldn't find it. So he blew up on me about it, and I knew that there was no reason for it. I spent time looking for it, couldn't find it. And then now I'm going to the next step. Now you can't find it. You got to get a new one. But he's, normally that would really have blown me up. And I was able to keep myself completely calm, recognize the situation for what it was. I even asked my father, I said, Dad, why are you acting like this? Like, this isn't rational. Like, I went through the steps. This is what we have to do next. I was the mature person in the conversation. So I attribute all that to meditation and being able to find a safe space in your mind and to silence yourself. One episode in my life in my recovery that was tremendously helpful for me is at some point I went, my wife and we have a place in the woods, and I went up there by myself for a few days, completely alone, just me and my cat. And it's interesting how loud your inner voice speaks when you're completely alone without distractions after a period of day or two. So like I was able to hear, it sounds crazy, but I was able to hear the inner conversation. And one thing I recognized was that the tone of voice that I would hear was not something that I like to hear. that it was not pleasant to me. I was not speaking to myself with a pleasant tone of voice. And that was a very big thing to be. That was a big blow, blew me away to think of that, the fact that I don't talk to myself with respect in my head. So what I started doing was that when I would hear my voice in my head speaking like that, I would just tell them to go fuck off, basically. And I don't need you anymore. So it sounds kind of funny, but I literally kicked out all the people, I don't know, in my head, kicked them out. I said, I don't like the way you're sounding to me. I want nothing to do with you. And I replaced them. What did I replace them with? Everybody has friends that always seem to say the right thing at the right time when you need to hear it. So I would start replacing the voices that maintain that conversation in my mind with voices of people that were very positive, like people that always made me feel good, always said the right things. I'd always make sure the voice that it was either not just what, sometimes it would almost be the tone of my friend's voice, hearing I'd use his voice in my head. So that was an interesting thing. Between the I don't know if you call that meditation. I don't know anybody else who really discussed this before, but I kind of reprogrammed myself, I guess. I became very aware from this time being alone. So I do recommend, it's a good thing to do. If a person has the ability to spend time alone, an extended amount of time, it sounds crazy, but if you can go away for a weekend and lock yourself in a cabin in the woods with plenty of food and water and a cat, so maybe you'll also gain what I gained. I do recommend that people do not have an opportunity to spend time alone at all. And it's a good thing to do, to spend a weekend completely alone with nobody else. And it's okay. You can turn on your computer if you want to watch a YouTube video. I was watching all kinds of inspirational YouTube videos. I was crying. I was very emotional. And the great thing of being alone is that nobody was around. I could cry all I wanted. I could scream all I wanted. I could rant and rave. I could do whatever I want. And it was very healthy. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. During the program, I think that it's a very important thing to keep a certain mindset, and that is what your goals are. And you should even have time frame goals, and they have to be reasonable. Obviously, you don't want to set goals that are too intense that if you don't reach, you're going to feel bad about yourself. So you have to set things that are very reasonable. But goals have to be set and goals have to be met. Whether it's working through this, how long is it going to take you to work through each step? How long should it really take you to go through the 12 steps? This has to be something that you have to have an honest conversation with yourself about. There's no reason you need to involve anybody else in it. Just look through the program and see what you think, and be honest with what you think it's going to take you to each step, and then try to hold yourself to it. If you don't think you could do a half hour in the morning and an hour in the morning because you have to get up too early for work, do whatever you can. That's my recommendation. If you have to do 5 or 10 minutes, it's better than nothing. And I think that after you start doing 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, you might realize you could do more. Because there's a part of us that always, the evil inclination always wants you to screw up. You always has that. There's a part of yourself that's kind of self-destructive, I find, that addicts have. And that part of yourself is the only place you're allowed to place your anger. If you want to know where you're going to get angry, you're going to get angry at that part of yourself that is being detrimental to your recovery. So it sounds kind of funny, but anger is very good if it's used in the right place. And that's the only place. You can't get angry at other people, and not even yourself. But you can get angry at the inner voices that are driving in the wrong direction because they're not you, and you can reprogram them, like I said. Justin, is there anything else I should focus in on right now?
Yeah, so I have one of my leading questions at the question and the Q&A, if you didn't get to it, was tell me what brought you into the program. Tell me your life that made you decide, hey, I got to get into a 12-step program.
Sure. My wife basically went through my phone and found what I had been doing. And for years, due to the fact that I built up a lot of resentment towards my wife, I started acting out with other women. And she found that. And that was what brought me into the program. I was pretty much broken down because I don't know. I never thought I was going to get caught. I didn't even think about the repercussions of being caught. So the repercussions of being caught really became something that was real and I was dealing with right in front of me. So that got me charged up to go into a program because I didn't want to lose everything that I had.
And as you came into program after, getting caught, what were some of the first things that you recognized as being helpful to you?
Well, it was interesting because a lot of people talk about how hard it is to walk through the doors. I didn't have a problem. I just wanted to solve I want to clean up the mess that I made. And I knew that I had internal demons I had to deal with. And that's really what drove me to the program. I had a mental breakdown when I was caught. And it's kind of interesting. I didn't expect to, because it was just such a shocker that everything, like getting kicked out of the house and having to sleep in my parents' house and then seeing what's could come of all this. And, that was really, I didn't want to lose my family. I have beautiful children, and I love my wife, and I just have issues with her. So this is not the way you deal with issues. Everybody has issues, but I just didn't deal with my issues the correct way. And now I'm learning how to deal with my issues the correct way. If I feel like I'm getting resentful, I'll just go and tell her, saying, you're making me feel resentful when you do this and that. I just try to be open, and I don't let my emotions bottle up inside of me anymore, and I don't try to repress things. That's what meetings are for sometimes. Sometimes you need to get it out. You need to say things that you can't say to your wife, and you don't know who to say it to. So meetings are great for when you feel like you got to get something out,
So I'm assuming that was kind of your rock bottom, getting caught, getting thrown out of the house. How did you feel in that rock bottom area?
It's a good question. It's kind of a blur because I did have a mental breakdown. And when that happens, your mind just doesn't work right and you don't remember things correctly. And I don't remember everything correctly, except that I knew I was a mess. I was not stable. I was emotionally very unstable. And the addiction made me mad. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I mean, I remember tons of times I would wake up in the morning and I would be saying no with my mouth as I was logging on with my hands. It's like this dual aspect of like wanting to do one thing and doing another thing and having no control over it. And I didn't know that I didn't know that there was an organization you can go to for help for this. I'm not too sure while I was going through it, I'm not too sure I really realized I was an addict. I just realized I was acting manicky. I was like, way too much time and effort was going on dating channels and texting people and sending photos to everybody. And then if you got turned down, the emotional downer that you felt from that, which kind of made you feel worse, and then be feeling worse about yourself drew you back to it. So it's kind of like, never ending cycle. I didn't know how to get myself out of it. So when I found there was a program, I thought I would get myself out of this cycle because I didn't enjoy it. It was very anxiety ridden. It wasn't fun.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. So do you mind sharing a little bit about, which fellowship you joined and how that has helped you throughout this time?
Sure. I went to the fellowship in Cedarhurst, and I've been going there pretty consistently over the last 4 years. The other programs I go to, there's a fellowship in Plainview I would attend. I did in the past. I haven't gone there for a long time. It's a great fellowship, and it really helped me a lot. And I also went to a different, what was it? Sex addiction. It was Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous. So I went to that. And I think the book is amazing. It's one with the purple stripes on it. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but the book is unbelievable. I really found being involved in more than one program was really nice because it's just good to see a different meeting with a different format for a change. Sounds kind of funny, but you have the same format every week, the same thing. So you go to another meeting with different formats, like, oh, that's nice. So I even incorporated that into the meeting. Sometimes I wouldn't change the format, but the order of things, I'd throw something in from another meeting. But I really recommend to people, by the way, if you're a person that is beyond porn, that you are having a lot of relationships, I totally recommend, especially the book from Sex and Love Addicts. It has purple stripes on it, from what I understand, and it's I can't tell you how well it's written. So it really spoke to me.
Awesome. And so your primary fellowship, the one that you attend in, I think you said Cedarhurst, is that Sexaholics Anonymous, SAA?
Yeah, it's Sexaholics Anonymous.
So it's SA. Awesome. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And we've had a lot of speakers from SA. We've had a lot of speakers from SLAA, and as well as a whole bunch of other fellowships. And I do really appreciate the variety. That's one of the reasons why I do this is so I get the background of so many people from so many different fellowships of recovery, and the different maybe angles of approaching the same 12 steps, and different insights as to how it's done, to see those similarities and the differences. So anyways, thank you very much, Jared. So a reminder to our live audience, if you have questions for Jared, type them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll get to those. I've got a couple other questions here for Jared. And Jared, once again, if you feel during these Q&As, hey, there's another thing I can riff on for a couple of minutes, feel free to do so. My first question, after these first couple, I guess my next question has to do with, hey, when you went off to your place in the woods to be alone for a few days. Tell me a little bit about isolation versus solitude. To you, is there a difference? And if so, what is that difference, and why would that be important if there is a difference?
Yeah, isolation is when you have nobody to reach out to and you're just cut off from the world. Solitude is when you choose to be alone for a couple days. So solitude would be a pleasant thing, and I would think that the other one would not be so pleasant, because it sounds like you have no choice. Did I miss something in the question?
I don't think so. Isolation versus solitude. I think you hit on that. So unless there's anything else that you're thinking of, we can move to the next question.
But I really enjoyed the woods. Before I got caught, we had already bought this place in the forest, because I've just always felt like a need to be out in the woods. I grew up in the city, or close to city suburbs and stuff, so I just felt the need. So I like this balance that I could have both. If I go upstate for too long, I will feel isolated, because there's a point in time where, like, I don't have friends up there, like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I could look into seeing if there's any concerts going on, but chances are not. What are you going to do? So you're going to sit in your house up there? So, when I go up there, I usually go with people. I don't go by myself anymore.
Very good. What does when we go into the first step of any of these fellowships, we admitted that we were powerless over whatever that is, and that our lives had become unmanageable. What does powerless and unmanageable mean to you? How does that manifest itself in your life?
Yeah. Powerless and unmanageable. That's what my life was like before I got into the program. And I was wrapped up in this probably like 10 years, like to one extent or another. Yeah, that was powerless, because I didn't have any tools to stop the process. I didn't know how to get off the boat, get off the merry-go-round. It just kept going. I just kept getting dragged back into it. I'd stop for a little bit, then I get dragged back into it. So having tools, it's very important to have tools that you can call people and ask for advice from people who've been through the same thing, but honestly, just working a program in the morning would usually take me through the day. It's like, after spending the morning working a program, talking to my sponsor, I didn't really have problems during the day. I mean, initially, when I entered the program, there were certain women I had a hard time giving up. And I would talk to my sponsor about that. There's a phrase that, this too shall pass. So, everything passes, whether it's good or bad. Nothing's permanent, So one thing I could tell everybody going through addiction, if you're having a bad day, it's just temporary. Everything's temporary.
Yeah, I love that. This too shall pass. I mean, I haven't yet died because I'm abstaining from my addiction. It hasn't killed me yet, and I think that's for me, that's a powerful way to remember. You know what? I'm now sober 6.5 years, and I haven't died yet, so I don't think I'm going to die from it today. All right.
Now, I really felt at one point that if I didn't use my penis, it would stop working. I really did. I thought if I didn't do something with it in a frequent basis, it's just going to stop working. It's the most ridiculous thing. It's completely wrong. It'll work. Don't touch it for a year. It'll still work.
Yep, that insanity that comes in there, that the step 2 being restored to sanity. What does that mean to you, being restored to sanity by whatever that higher power is to you?
It's a great question. I had a really hard time with my higher power, because I'd say 15 years prior to me getting caught, I was practicing religion very heavily. So it really was hard for me to go back, because I was like, it doesn't work. I mean, like, it might be true, but it don't work. What am I supposed to do? So yeah, I really have a hard time with prayer these days, because I used to pray 3 times a day. I was very religious, I'm Jewish. And now I don't, and I really don't feel the need to. I just talk to God whenever I feel like it. But I just felt like that for me personally, the very heavily induced religious lifestyle was very anxiety ridden for me. I'm a much calmer person now. I have much less anxiety, knowing that I don't have to run off to a minion at 7 o'clock in the morning before I go to friggin' work. And then when I get off work, you have to hit another one. I mean, it's very anxiety ridden. You're running around trying to pray everywhere. I mean, it's not calming. So, so for me, I deal my inner voice, my higher power. He thinks it's fine. So that's all that really matters.
Yeah. And then the restoral to sanity in that sense, can you see or remember a time maybe where that light went on, where, oh, I get it a little bit now. I get and I can move forward from here.
It's a great question. I guess when I entered the program, I was very unstable. And then somehow working through the program, I think I gained my stability back. But I don't know. Can you repeat your question? I think I missed it.
It was just basically the restoral to sanity, when maybe a moment where you went, oh, I get it. There's a light just came on and cleared things up a little bit.
Well, my opportunity when I was alone upstate and I was able to hear the voices in my head. First, I felt crazy. I'm like, this is insane. So it's a good question of whether I gained I realized my sanity or lost it at that point in time. Can't really tell you. But I'm definitely more stable now. I'm more in control. I'm not so emotionally. I used to be very emotionally affected by stuff, like things that just everything used to. I was a flag in the wind. Like I was just blown around, like somebody comes up to you and they're angry. Suddenly I'm angry. My wife comes and yells at me. Suddenly I'm angry. Somebody yells at me. Suddenly I'm feeling bad about myself. So I from all my meditation and stuff, I just observe people. I used to, by the way, part of my meditation that I would do, it's called a walking meditation, is constant self-awareness, constantly being aware of what you're thinking, what you're doing, and just trying to like stay that way all the time. It's really hard. But now when I observe, when I got used to observing my own thoughts, now when people talk to me, I observe their thoughts more than feel like they're so, I don't know. I guess the best way to put it, I learned more of an observer role, which makes me less emotionally involved in what's going on, because I'm a very emotional person. Matter of fact, I keep myself from watching certain things on the news because I just get very emotionally driven up. If I hear like animals are being abused, like you say there's a video and you see like some really sickly dog that was thrown in the street, I can't take this shit. I'm too mushy. So I found that I had to create a healthy form of defense barrier, not one that hides myself, but one that just protects me. So one of my meditations I did, and it's a really great one, is you imagine yourself building a force field around your body, like a bubble. And you meditate on this force field just being built around your body and how only good things can come in. It has a permeable membrane. Only good things that come in, bad things leave immediately, like waste excretes from a cell. And I had this meditation where I'd meditate on that for a while. And I don't know if but it helped me build this sort of healthy barrier where I feel like it protects good things come in, bad things go out type thing, I guess. It's a good meditation. There's so many good meditations out there, honestly.
Yeah, meditation, prayer and meditation has really revolutionized my own recovery. I've only implemented it seriously in the last maybe 2 years, but man, for me, steps 2 and 11 have been the biggest game changers in my recovery. And like I said, I was about 5 years sober when I retook those steps in a way that just took me to the next level. I, like you, I grew up and I still do participate very much in the religion of my youth, the faith of my youth. but I had lost total trust and faith in the God of my youth. And the coolest thing I ever did in my recovery so far was fire God, the God of my understanding. I fired his butt, and then I hired a new God that is that positive voice, that positive, always there, never letting me down. And if the old God tries to creep in, I show him his walking papers that I already gave him and walk him right out of that corner office in my mind that he held for so many years. But yeah, it's such a powerful, powerful experience. What of the steps, which of the steps have been most powerful in your own walk in recovery?
So as I said, I was very full of resentments. So going through my resentment lists were very mind opening. Writing down all the people you felt resentment for, and realizing how far back in your life it goes, that you're still holding on to resentments from childhood. I mean, like, obviously, if you're holding on resentments from childhood, that's going to affect you. There's no way it can't. So for me, getting over my resentments towards all these people that I felt like I had resentments towards for whatever reasons, it was a very enlightening process of discovering how many people I felt resentment towards, who these people were, why I felt resentment towards them, and just moving past it. It was is a great feeling to move past your resentments. You know what I mean? That was probably the best part of the program for me. I had a very hard time with God. I still am not like 100%, there, honestly, because of my background, and maybe one day I'll figure that one out. But yeah, I fired my God and hired a God, I did the same thing. And I feel much better about it. Will I ever work back to any of the faith of my childhood? Look, I still believe in it. I just can't practice it. It for some strange reason, it makes me more anxious. Judaism is very hard. You got to pray 3 times a day. Okay. You got to eat kosher. It means you can't eat out anywhere if you go leave New York. You can't use the Sabbath and everything. Can't travel on Saturday. All these restrictions. And I wasn't born this observant, actually. At the age of like 26 or so, I became more observant. And I took on all these things. And it was a point in my life where I realized I bit off more than I can chew. Everybody's different, from other people. It's maybe not, but for me, I bit off way more than I can chew. And it was not leading me towards God at all,
Yeah, I found that religiosity, whatever that faith background is, can destroy peace rather than restore it or bring it in. No, good stuff. You mentioned, going through your resentments list. So step 4, how did you go about step 6, 7, 8, and 9 in that process? Hey, I've listed all these resentments, these things that I resent people for. How did you give those up and then make amends for those?
So honestly, the only person I made amends for was my wife, because all the other ones, it was better off I didn't. Whether they were ex-girlfriends or whether they were other people that just from my past who just wouldn't be a good idea to get in touch with. So most of the people on my list really wasn't appropriate. And it's really kind of funny. But one of the people I had most resentments towards was my principal in elementary school. And she's actually friends with my mom. And it's annoying because I hate her like crazy. And my mom has her over. And last Wednesday, I came over for dinner, and my father's like, "Oh, guess who's coming over?" And I said, "I'm out of here," and I left. It's just because you get over your resentment towards somebody doesn't mean you love them. How's that? So I'm over my resentment towards her, and she doesn't have any effect on me. I don't love her. I don't want to see her again. and whatever, it's like, it's really nice when you're able to make good on things and to approach the person and everything, but it's not always possible. And it's not always a good idea,
Awesome. Got a question in here from Eva. Thanks so much for your share, Jared. Lots of great info, but things I will have time to mention. You said anger is good. Addiction made me mad. For me, it has been, I am not so much angry. I am in pain. This pain, discomfort, disease, this is what I must address. The injustice, inequalities, plus throughout my life reminds me once again that I am powerless, surrender, and I must surrender. So it looks like it's more of a comment here.
So I would say that I would
thoughts
say
on that?
anger is the if you had a coin and on one side said depression, anger is on the other. Anger is a form of depression turned outward instead of inward. So you're describing your inward, you're turning your emotions inward right now. So that's why you feel that way. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Jared. All right. So you mentioned that your wife was the only one that you made formal amends with. And this might be a question that, would be better posed to her. But I'm very curious with this. With almost every person that I work with in recovery, I ask them, hey, is your spouse or your significant other or your, if you're still living with your parents or whatever, your mother or father, are they also working recovery? And if so, what does that look like? So there's a question I'd like to ask you. Is your wife also working her recovery from this? And what does that look like for her?
Great question. So my wife was very triggered by the program of recovery. So she actually didn't take that path. It didn't work out for her. She saw a therapist for a while and found other ways to deal with it. She read some books and stuff like that. But she didn't find that the recovery program fit her. She didn't want to work 12 steps. And when she went to these meetings, she kept bumping into people who would say things that would make her very triggered. Like, you got to expect him to, he might make a mistake. And, if he does, what are you going to do? And stuff like that. And that's not really healthy thinking to think that, to be expecting your spouse that is going to fuck up and bring a girl home or something stupid, So, and one thing I could say too about my addiction is that it's much more difficult. This addiction is much more difficult for pornography addicts because all you have to do is press a button and you slipped. For me, there's a lot of steps. I wasn't a pornography addict. I was into meeting people. So it takes a lot of steps to get there. So it's harder for me to slip, so to speak, than it is for a pornography addict is.
Thanks for sharing that. How did that amends process go? Do you mind me asking how you approached it? This may be getting too personal, and if it is, don't worry about asking.
No,
but
no such thing. Yeah. No such thing as too personal. That's what this is all about.
Awesome.
So I don't remember exactly what I said. I don't remember the exact words, but I remember getting the hardest part about it was getting mentally bludgeoned by my wife for the first year, I guess. So that was basically, I was just dealing with her mental bludgeoning. She just had no control. She would say very hurtful things, and I really couldn't blame her. And that was the hardest part for me, was the hurtful things that she would say in that whole portion of the time where, but I don't really remember exactly, because I probably apologized so many times, I can't even count. So, and there were so many different times that I sat down with her and apologized for it. So, and so I don't recall a specific time. It was very hard. My wife kept asking the same questions over and over and over and over and over. That was really hard too. You turn my phone off. My volume's down here too. Ringer. Oh man. Yeah, trying to take off during the day.
All right. So you mentioned that. So what does healing for you personally, and maybe for your relationship with your wife look like from this day moving forward?
The big thing is lowering expectations. The lower your expectations are, the happier you'll be. That's something that I've really learned. It sounds depressing at first, but it's not. Because we're not talking about expectations in a negative way. It's just like, if you're expecting your wife to greet you at the front door and she doesn't, you're upset. Why put those expectations out there in the first place? Is it really necessary? So I find that lowering my expectations for people was a very big thing. I have way too high expectations for others because I expect people to do things the way I do. And not everybody does, So expectations for others and lowering them is very important in order not to build new resentments.
I love that. Long before I was working my own recovery, my wife was healing from my betrayals and from her own issues also. But she brought up this phrase that's very close to what you just shared there about one time I had these expectations that things would be done some way. And it caused me to have a ton of resentments. And I had no idea, didn't know the workings behind it or anything. But she said, you know what? Expectations are nothing more than predetermined resentments. And it kind of hit me in the gut. It's like, wait, when I have an expectation that somebody do something the way that I expect them to do it, I'm setting myself up to have resentments against them. And the more I've thought about it, the more that rings true. Does that ring true to you at all?
Very much so. So, yeah, I think it's a big thing in society these days. I mean, look how people on one side of the fence can't even talk to people on the other side of the fence politically. Well, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I agree with you. You have to lower your expectations for people, and you have to realize that everybody has a different way of thinking about things and different experiences. And, you know, you got to respect them for that, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Before we close up, do you have any other final parting words or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, learn to love yourself. Addicts, in general, our big problem is that we don't love ourselves enough. So we have to learn to love ourselves more. And this is not a form of narcissism, it's some form of appreciation. So self-care, self-love. I make sure that I very much keep on top of my self-care. And I try to do things that make me happy. I try to create things to look forward to. I love music, so I'm always planning to go to see another band. And looking forward to another band for me is very optimistic. I love music. So one of the big things I missed during the last year was with the COVID. You couldn't go out and socialize, and so I'm an extrovert. So when I'm not around other people, I feel like I have no energy. I need to be around other people. It's funny. Yeah, lower your expectations on others, and don't be judgmental, and realize that you know, you might change your mind one day and they might change their mind one day, you know? So, and I don't try to, one thing also I've reached recently is when I used to get into conversations about people with politics or things, I always felt like I had the requirement that I had to speak my part and explain why I'm right. I don't do that anymore. There's so many times that I feel like I would have said my part in anything, you know, in tons of times. I find that I don't speak as much as I used to. I'm much quieter, I mean, so to speak, because I find that, I don't know, I feel like I've learned to censor my speech, because that's another thing that could lead me into resentment. I can create a situation that's very uncomfortable for everybody, you know?
Thank you for sharing all those things. I really appreciate it, Jared. Thank you for your time. Good RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to know more and learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If you have any other questions that we weren't able to get to, please go to rico12.com/forum and join in our community and ask those questions and answer others' questions that may come up. I invite the audience to come back next week. If you've not yet gone to rico12.com and submitted your email address, get on to get on that invitation list, go do it. And if you really like this format, this program, this service that we do, go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review us. It helps us work our 12th step. Next week, we'll be hearing from Tanya D. from Germany, a multidisciplinary fellowship member in recovery for 14 years, whose topic will be the root of my affliction. Now, let's launch off into the rest of our day with the third step prayer, and I'll say that. God, we offer ourselves to thee, to build with us and do with us as thou wilt. Relieve us of the bondage of self, that we may better do thy will. Take away our difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those we would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May we do thy will always. Amen. Keep coming back, everybody. It works when I work it, so work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground, I can still be found, standing still.
My wings are torn and tattered, but I know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered, I may not rise too high.
Recorded in the book of life and bind it with the seal